Hey, everybody, it's Tony George. It is Masters Week, DocSports, and today I was able to land the big fish. Every now and then you go out, you keep casting your line, you get the nibbles, but one of the premier sports betting analysts in the country, in my opinion, when it comes to the PGA, and a damn good sports betting analyst anyway, from VSIN fame out there in Las Vegas, my friend Wes Reynolds. Wes, how's it going, buddy?
Tony, you oversell me to your audience, but I very much appreciate it, sir. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, before we get to this, I just want to file a disclaimer with Wes, too. Wes has seen my golfing prowess on the number 2 tee box at Prim Valley in the VSIN tournament. Rest assured, I'm a little better at this than I was at that.
We have to pour one out for Prim Valley, the former Prim Valley Golf Club. Sad to see it go. Great course, great times out there.
Sure was. Wes, we've got ourselves the Masters here in Augusta. Looks like it's going to be good weather. They had some crappy weather on Monday, obviously. A lot of rain. Looks like the course, based on, live at the Masters and all the coverage they have on Golf Network, looks like it might be kind of a softer course than normal. They're known for their greens. Obviously running, 13 plus on the stip meter. I've been down this tournament a couple of times. My last time was 2013 when Adam Scott won. And also there in 2006 for Phil Mickelson. And I had a question right off the top. Rory McIlroy is one shy of the Grand Slam in the majors, and the Masters eludes him. I wanted you to discuss him a little bit with people. Your thoughts on Rory. Now, he's got a couple of wins this year. He's probably, in my opinion at least, in the best golf shape heading into this Masters than he's been in quite some time. Couple of wins under his belt. I don't know where he is in the world golf ranking. He's right up there. And, of course, 12 out of the last 13 Master winners have been in the top 16 in the world golf ranking. But McIlroy here in good shape. Your thoughts on him in this tournament?
Yeah, look, Tony, I think you said it all is the fact that this is the best that he has played. This is the best that he has coming in. He's won at Pebble Beach. He won at the Players. And he also led the field on approach at the Players, because that's always kind of been what's been off about Rory. We know he's arguably the best driver of the golf ball in the world, or at least in the top 3. But the iron's a little shaky, and the irons are in good shape coming in this week. So I reserve the right to still add him on an outright. I did bet him from a top 10. It is, you got to lay a little bit of a price to do that. But here's going to be the key for Rory. Can he get off to a good start? Can he finally get off to a good start? Because if you go back to 2019, and now keep in mind the average number of shots off the lead after round 1 for like the last 10 years at the Masters, a little bit less than 4 shots off the lead. Go back for 2019 with Rory after the first round. 7 back, 10 back, 11 back, 6 back, 7 back, 6 back. He's got to be close. I think he's just got to get off to that good start. So this might be one you'll lose a little bit on the price that's already short anyway, but this might be one where you want to wait on. Or maybe if you go the conservative route, play in the placement markets. But I can't imagine Rory not contending this week. I think he's got to be there. And look, we've been saying it since 2015, right, Tony, that this is his year.
Yeah.
This is his year. He's going to do it. He's going to join Nicklaus and Tiger and Player and all these guys, Hagen, that have won the Grand Slam. And maybe this is finally his time. I feel like he's in a good frame of mind, at least. The elbow thing popped up a couple weeks ago. He's like, it's fine. I'm going to take him at his word at that, but he's going to be there in the mix. I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
Yeah, me too. I think this is probably his best shot. He's not getting any younger either. There have been a lot of players, in their 40s that have won this. And so he's got some time, but in terms of golf shape, I was impressed with what he did at the Players, no doubt about it. He's gained a lot of shots tee to green. I think he's second or third on tour. So he's got some metrics there that make a lot of sense for me. And I'll be playing him in top 10s and top 20s regardless. I mean, he's the top of his game. Now, we can talk about the Roy McIlroys, or we could and the Scotty Schefflers and the big names on tour. But one thing I wanted to get to, and by the way, this is Wes Reynolds from VSIN.com, and he has an article up there right now, if you're a premium member over there at VSIN, where you can read his takes on this tournament, which if you're betting the PGA Tour, and you're not reading Wes Reynolds stuff on VSiN, then you're leaving a serious weapon out of your arsenal. Just FYI, folks. But I noticed in some of your picks, and I'm just going to ask you a general question. Everybody kind of forgets about the talent level that exists on the LIV Tour. I mean, a lot of people discount that. Neiman, Rahm, by the way, Rahm got a green jacket. 2 years ago. Johnson's got a green jacket. He got it during the COVID year, but DJ jacket. Phil Mickelson, we go down the list here. Garcia, major champion winners. Koepka, Reed, Cameron Smith, Bubba Watson. I mean, for crying out loud, out of these LIV golfers right now, circle me a couple that you've had your eye on coming into this tournament, Wes.
Well, yeah, you remember, Tony, a couple years ago when it's the first time these LIV guys were in the Masters, and they were kind of out of sight, out of mind, to be fair. They weren't playing a lot of regular golf. So the odds makers kind of bumped their prices up a little bit, and they darn near paid for it. Now, Rahm, who was on the PGA Tour still at the time, eventually got there, but you had Koepka, you had Mickelson, you had Reed, you had several of those guys up there that were threats to win in 2023. And those guys were like, okay, we don't want to do this again. We don't want to be dealing cookies out to the customers and the players here, with that. So, yeah, I think you certainly have to consider now, the one thing about it is with stat modeling, especially for the majors, you don't have a lot of that data from LIV. You don't have a lot of that shot link and strokes gain data that we live and die by as golf bettors with the PGA Tour, and to a lesser extent the DP World Tour every single week. So you have to, do a little bit of searching here and do a little bit of digging. But yeah, I ended up just with a couple of the guys on LIV. You mentioned one of them that I wouldn't bet at the current price, and that's Joaquin Niemann. I think if you got him in the 50s where he was available, great on you. But now at half that price, and I know he's got a lot of win equity, but the thing about Joaquin Niemann, he's never really been right there in a major. And I'm somebody that does subscribe to the theory, Tony, where it's like you need a little bit of pain before you can get the triumph in the major. You need to come close a little bit, and he has not yet. But I did play Rahm at plus 1650, and if you look, he was 3 in the world at the end of 2023. Now he's 80th, of course, because they're not getting ranking points on the LIV Tour, and he hasn't played, I really think, maybe but one DP World Tour event. He's not playing these Asian Tour events like some of these other guys are, but he's won twice on LIV in 2024, never has finished outside the top 10 in any event. I know the field's only 54 players, but still, to do that every single week, because some weeks you're not going to have your A game. And I think Rahm, despite the fact that he's number 3 or 4 on the odds board, isn't he a little bit under the radar? Doesn't it seem like nobody's really talking about him coming in here? I think now, not being the defending champion, he's at a little bit more of peace. Because I think at first he was a little bit uncomfortable when he went to LIV. It's like, what's the reaction I'm going to get? I'm not feeling it. It's a different atmosphere. It's all, just a different schedule. And now it's kind of like, well, I made my decision. So now I'm going to lie in my pile full of money and be okay with it. And he's getting back to the Masters. I think that you're going to see him play very, very well. He's in the mix at Doral, kind of fell off a little bit on Sunday, but Rahm is who I played. And I did play one other LIV guy. This is a longer shot. I mentioned him before. I played Patrick Reed at 100-1, who finally won for the first time in 4 years last November in the Hong Kong Open on the Asian Tour. He always seems to find something here, Tony, even when he's playing terrible. he's always pretty solid here. I think he's been inside the top 12 in 4 of the last 5 years, won it here in 2018. He's got a sense of urgency because he's outside that top 100 right now in the world golf rankings. Really good finish here. Might get him in the PGA or might get him in the Open or the U.S. Open. So he's one of them guys that have been trying to pick up those world ranking points too, play in DP World Tour, play in the Asian Tour on the off weeks from Live. So Patrick Reed, look, guys that are just good horses for courses tend to go well here, and I think Patrick Reed is absolutely that.
And of course, Koepka, you keep every time you look on Live, you turn on, now they're on Fox. They were on the CW channel last year, but you always had to scroll through the leaderboard to get Koepka, and then he turns around and wins the PGA Championship. I mean, the guy still shows up for majors. That was kind of his gig when he was on the PGA Tour. He'd hang around in some tournaments, get some top 25s, top 20s, whatever, few top 10s. But when the majors rolled around, he was kind of a big deal. You did not mention Bryson DeChambeau. Your thoughts on Bryson in this tournament from Live Tour?
Yeah, last year was really the first year he ever, I think, really was in the mix here. Because remember, it was a couple years ago when he made that comment, when he was he's like, par is 67 for me. And he never came close to shooting 67 here. Like the best he ever played here, I think, was when he was the low amateur in 2016. Now, he did share the opening round lead in 2019 with Koepka. He was also the first round leader in the Cove 36 hole leader here last year before he ended up, I believe, T6. Comes in, U.S. Open winner last summer, was runner-up to Xander at Valhalla at the PGA. He seems to come alive for the majors, which is why you have this short price. The distance is still there. He's pretty accurate for as long as he hits the ball. The one thing that does concern me a little bit about Bryson and the distance and all that stuff is great here, and he has nice touch around the green for like scrambling and strokes gained around the green, is the putting. Because these fast bent grass greens, he never really has seemed to figure out. Like, I still think even with last year, him playing well, he's still kind of trying to figure this out a little bit. And maybe this is going to be soft and a little bit slower in the early rounds. Like you mentioned, Friday, we're supposed to get a little bit of a shower, but they have those dryers underneath. So Saturday and Sunday, these are going to be like putting on glass. These are going to be really fast greens. So I'm going to be interested to see how Bryson adjusts to that, because I think that opens it up for the rest of the field with these greens being so fast. But I'm not against him, but I'm not necessarily on him this week. But, won't shock you. I don't think he's like really been top tier yet on Live here in 2025 in those limited events, but he gets alive for the majors. And I think all these guys do. They just come alive, and there's a chip on their shoulder because they obviously want to, beat the PGA Tour guys with all the acrimony that's gone on in the game for certain.
Yeah, a name I've heard a lot from a lot of guys, especially over on the CBS website, and I wanted to get your take on this cat. And he's played some decent golf this year, but he just has a tendency to fade in the big moments, and that's Sepp Straka. There's a lot of people that are high on him, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that he was plus 200 for a top 20 right now at one betting site that I look at. Is that a good bet or not?
I think it probably is in the placement markets. And I've talked to probably maybe even some of the same people, but people in similar vein that really like this guy this week. And I hit on him at the American Express earlier this year at 60-1. That was like a birdie fest, though, where you had to shoot like 30 under par to win the thing. This is obviously a horse of a different color, but when you look at Sepp, this is a guy, the man from Austria. He is improving. I think gradually he's improved in those rankings. He's becoming more of a regular fixture on the leaderboard. Of course, has won now 3 times on the PGA Tour. Had a good run in the majors in 2023, where he was T7 at the PGA. He was T2 in the Open, but not a lot of long-term great form, I would say, in the majors. Not necessarily bad form. He's made the majority of his cuts, but I think the best way to probably play him is in that top 20 or top 30 market, because he's playing the best golf of his career right now. He's finished 15th or better in 7 of 10 events in 2025, second on the overall PGA Tour in approach and for greens and regulation. So the ball striking is excellent. But when the putter gets hot, that's where he goes to a different level. But is he good enough to win the Masters right now? I don't know. I understand why he's a value play, but placement markets, he's definitely a guy I think you want to attack.
Placement market as well. A guy that I've been impressed with, and I've watched golf and avid golfer, obviously, avid Golf Channel fan, Ludvig Aberg. Now, this guy finished second last year. He's one of in my opinion, at least from what I've seen and witnessed, he's one of the best talents in the last 5 years to come on tour. This cat has it all. There's not he doesn't have a whole lot of weakness, in terms of an all-around game. Top 20 at plus 135. He's coming off a runner-up last year. And what was most impressive about that, I think that's one of the first times you'd ever seen the course. He doesn't have a lot of experience here. And I know that experience does count on this course. The players that know the nuances of this course, have got 5 or 6 plus tournaments under their belt, the Jordan Spieths, the Justin Thomases, all those guys you could talk about. McIlroy, Scheffler, obviously, has got it figured out, obviously, but Tiger Woods. But this Aberg kid, what do you think about him?
Well, I think he's a great talent, and I think he's going to probably eventually be a multiple-time major champion. And in full disclosure, I do have a ticket on him that I bet earlier in the year at a better price. I probably wouldn't have bet it this week necessarily, and it's not because he missed the cut at the Valero. That was a, bad wind and just tough weather conditions. So I'm willing to dismiss that. But the one thing about Ludvig, who was obviously in the mix here at the Masters and was the outright runner-up, 4 shots back of Scotty, but still, pretty impressive for a guy with not a lot of major championship pedigree, even though he has major talent.
Yeah.
Ludvig last year gained 8 strokes putting over the 4 rounds, two strokes a round. So putting is, I think, the stat, Tony, that really has the most variance. And this, having not only play, but betting, that it's going to, it's going to go sideways. It's going to be where you gain that many strokes and then you lose them maybe a week later. It's going to have the ball striking stays more true, and putting doesn't always do that. But Ludvig this week, I have a ticket on him, so if he wins, I cash something, but it's not something I'm necessarily giving out as one of my bets for this week. It was just a lot of this with the Masters too, and this, Tony, is you're taking numbers because these numbers are up in the fall. So you want to exploit, and let's say, hey, I want to get a guy at 60-1 that may end up going off at 20-1. Well, that's a hell of a bet. But and you don't get that kind of like price equity necessarily when you're looking at the other majors. But Ludvig, he could play well here. I don't like it as much though as I did when I bet it about a month and a half ago.
I like him top 20. His putting it comes and goes. I had a question presented to me today from a client who also is a Twitter fan, and I had announced you were coming on the show, and he had a question for me to ask you. Is Xander Schauffele right now a waste of money even to bet in the top 20, the way he's played this year? This is a guy that won 2 majors last year, and he's been in the hunt. Like you said, he had to go through some pain before he got the pleasure. Because he had a lot of, nail biters in majors, and he's obviously, gold medal winner in the Olympics and absolutely fantastic player. But right now, coming off that injury, he's just looked like a dog turd in a cantaloupe patch most of the year. Wes, your thoughts on it? Is it a waste of money to even go top 20 with this guy this week?
I don't know if I would say waste of money. I forewent him on certainly the outright card, and he's kind of the one that maybe there's a little bit of a fear factor because he could pop at any moment. But we know that he missed a couple months this year with the rib injury. Came back on the Florida swing. Really didn't play all that great, even though he's 12th at the Valspar and the approach numbers were at the top. And by the way, the approach numbers are 3rd on the PGA Tour right now, so his irons are great. Problem is nothing else is, Tony. He's 166 in strokes gained putting. He's 164 for strokes gained off the tee. Now, is some of that a little bit rust? Certainly. But he doesn't necessarily inspire a lot of confidence in me from an outright. Maybe you get there in the top 20. I'm kind of looking at the odds board as we speak right now to see if he's getting bet in some matchups. And he's gotten a little bit of money, I think, against DeChambeau in a matchup that's available in some books down to plus 110 when he's plus 120 on the opener. But Xander is a guy I'm kind of going to leave alone this week. Unless there's something I see in play. I'm not going to fade him, but I'm not necessarily going to back him either.
It's been 4 years since Collin Morikawa won on U.S. soil. He's been close in some tournaments this year. This is another cat. If his putter gets going, he's dangerous. He's got a well-rounded game. Plus 120 in the top 20. For Collin Morikawa at one outlet here. That's rattling my cage a little bit. Yeah. I think he's going to be on the first 2 pages of the leaderboard this week, the way he's played. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you probably have to bet that, and I'm going to bet that. And, I do a lot of my placement stuff on Tuesday late night, Wednesday early morning.
Me too.
I do have him on the outright card. It's not the best number at 18-1. And you mentioned he hadn't won on American soil in over 4 years. Now he's won, but I think 2023 at the Zozo might have been his last win. But when you look at Morikawa, he blew that event at Bay Hill at the Arnold Palmer last month. Credit Russell Henley for hitting a hell of a shot on 16 and chipping in to win. But Morikawa had that under control, and you could tell he was smart, and he got a little snippy with the media and has been over the last few weeks. But I just look at him, Tony, and I know that the driving distance is not impressive. You think he's 168th in average driving distance, but you can make up for a lack of length off the tee with iron play and with ball striking, because these fairways, and you've been there, 51 yards wide, so you don't get a lot of trouble off the tee. You can get in the trees, but there's not very penal rough. You can hit it off that pine straw and taking different angles at the pins. His iron play is back to world class, elite status. I think that's always been his bread and butter ever since he burst onto the scene. Each of the last 3 years, 5th in 2022, T10 in 2023, 3rd here last year. I think he's kind of, you're getting that progressively good form where he's starting to maybe figure this place out. And, probably feels much like Justin Thomas, by the way, at the Valspar, where it's like they let an event get away. And there's just that little bit of I let that one get away. And I think both of those guys whose iron play is back to, I think, what it was a couple years ago, where they kind of dipped a little bit. Those guys, I think, out for a little bit of something and playing consistent golf. So Morikawa and Thomas kind of fit in that same category for me.
We couldn't have a Masters discussion, and we're going to ask you for a couple wild cards here in a minute to close out the show, but we could not have a discussion about the Masters unless we talked about the returning champion. He's having his champions dinners tonight with this Texas ribeye, and all the winners are getting together, and Scotty Scheffler cut his hand over the holidays severely and was out for a lot of the early season stuff, and it's taken him a little while, to kind of get his mojo back, so to speak. Mojo back enough to get a top 5 this week.
Could be. And now he's another one I'm going to leave alone a little bit because I don't want to fade him, because that usually doesn't go well. Even though we did get him a couple weeks ago with Minwoo Lee. So Minwoo cooked enough at Houston. But yeah, I think Scotty, in terms of the numbers, he's starting to come back around. By the way, he is first on strokes gained approach and second for strokes gained off the tee. So they're not a better ball striker in the world than Scotty Scheffler and these were last year's numbers. And they're starting to come back to form in 2025. But because he's 6th off the tee and 7th in approach, but led them both last year. I think what we don't take in the context, putting the injury aside when he missed a couple early events in January, is that was a historical season from a stat standpoint, from a modeling standpoint, that kind of ball striking, and as great of a player and his pedigree. And look, he's going to win more and he's going to win more major championships. He's too talented not to, but you can only go down a little bit, like down a peg a little bit from as well as he struck the ball. And it's just a peg. Like I mentioned, 6 off the tee, 7th on approach, 3rd total strokes gain. The putter's actually been a little bit better to start. So yeah, Scotty, I'm not interested in necessarily fading him. And if you look in the matchup market, I think that's probably right. He's about $1.50 over Rory. He's like 185, 190 over Morikawa. So I'm not wanting to necessarily step in front of him from a matchup standpoint. But it's kind of getting to the point, Tony, where it's like, sometimes you got to let the favorite beat you. And sometimes he does, horse racing, sometimes a 3-5 runs like a 3-5. And that's your free square and your pick 6. But so that's what Scotty can sometimes do. I think he's got to feel good about his game. He played very well at Houston, almost ran Minwoo down, even though Minwoo had control of the tournament until he hit that water ball in 16. But, I think he's starting to get there slowly but surely. Maybe it's this week. It's certainly going to be very darn soon.
Yeah, he had last year, I just said he just had a Tiger Woods year.
Absolutely.
Literally, for most of the tournaments, not necessarily the majors, with Schauffele winning 2 of them, but, some of those tournaments, when they all showed up, it's kind of like Ernie Els said back when Tiger won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach by double digits. He just said, hey, we're all playing for second. I mean, he had one of those years last year, and a notch. He ain't that far off the mark. He's when he gets everything going, he's very tough to beat. Wes Reynolds from VSIN.com. He's got his Masters article up there. It's got all kinds of information about the course, some really, really cool trends that he found for the Masters on there. Read his stuff weekly. Before I let you go, Wes, any kind of wild card names out of the clear blue sky that raised your eyebrows this week?
Well, I did mention Pat Reed, who I did play. So, and Tony, I don't think you want to go like we all like the long shots. So you don't want to take like all chalk, but you don't want to necessarily and take short prices, but you don't want to necessarily go too far down the board because class players win here. And that's the way it is. I look at the 2 long shots that have catched over the last 15 years. Remember Charles Schwartzel when he made those 4 birdies in a row to beat Adam Scott, and Rory in 2013 or 2011. He was 90-1, but he was still a top 30 player in the world. Danny Willett, long shot price, 66-1 in 2016. He was number 12 in the world. And people forget about that. It's like this guy wasn't a no name, but if you look, it's been either shorter prices or like mid-range guys. So I'll go kind of a mid-range guy. I gave Reed as the bomb. How about Bobby Mack, Robert McIntyre at 60-1, who's chomping at the bit. He wasn't in the field here the last 2 years. Now, he won twice last year. He won at the Canadian Open for his first PGA Tour win. Then he followed it up and won Scottish Open, which is the week before a major championship. And there's a lot of pressure for a Scotsman to win at home. And he certainly did after he lost that one in excruciating fashion to Rory the year before. 12th and 23rd on his 2 appearances here. He's a big hitting left-handed guy. So he pits the profile, I think, of like Phil Mickelson, Bubba Watson, who bomb it all over the tee, hit it all over the damn yard, but still find ways to recover. And that's what he does. And, 2015, 6 finishes of 17th or better in 9 events. Maybe the first Scotsman since Sandy Lyle to win the Masters back in, I want to say it was 83. It was early 80s when Lyle won. But Bobby Mack, I think, is a guy who absolutely fits the profile here.
Yeah, I got him in top 20. I've already got that ticket. I like that number. He kind of flies under the radar screen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our Masters preview. He is Wes Reynolds, a Las Vegas resident, all-around great guy. Really appreciate you coming on the show here for DocSports. On my card, we do our cards. We either do head-to-heads daily at Docs, or we put out our futures on Wednesday. And I'm going to do top 10s and top 20s. And I always think from a betting perspective, and I know Wes isn't a pick seller, but in these major tournaments, it seems to me the cream always rises to the top.
Yep.
And I find better value with a lot of these big. Now, I'll take a few flyers in the top 20, but I find more value in betting the overall tournament in the placements bets than I do going head-to-heads. I just seem to have more success. So my card will be out on Wednesday. And, of course, there'll be a link here for a free $60 for anybody who'd never been on board at Docs before. That's my promo. And, Wes, I'll be getting out to Vegas. We'll go out. We'll hit some sticks here soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Tony. Thanks for having me, brother.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, folks.